Hello, this is Iron Bill back again with another video. It's actually Thursday morning, August 1st, as of the making of this. It's unusual for me to make videos on Thursdays, but there are recent events that merit some discussion as it applies to the ongoing discussion we've been having on the channel regarding PvP and the state of it. And I do want to open by saying that really have enjoyed the conversations. I try to respond to every comment, but after you get so far into a discussion, it's hard sometimes to pick up the new comments. And I know I get email notifications of your comments, and I try to find them, but sorting them becomes more and more difficult the deeper the discussion goes. So if I overlook some of your comments, know that they are appreciated. And it really has been an interesting development. I did not expect that video to blow up like it did. I kind of thought it would just be very quickly dismissed. But apparently this tapped a thread that a lot of you are feeling, a lot of us are feeling, and I'm glad that the conversation has been civil for the most part, and nothing that I would, nothing's happened that I would want to remove any sort of comment or anything like that. So it's been good, and I've moderated bulletin board services back in the day and Usenet and all that stuff, and things can get pretty hairy, and you folks are classy, and I want to thank you for that. So all right, so our ongoing discussion has been about lobby balancing and matchmaking and all of that, and then that was set in the environment of, is Bungie just casting around for an answer? But it turns out that maybe the problem's even deeper than that. And most of you are aware of this post from Bungie. It really has been hitting the social media over the last couple of days. And this was the new path for Bungie. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. I mean, you can read it yourself. But the gist of it is that Bungie is laying off 220 people. Something like that. So I think that's the number. Roughly 17% of their studio's workforce is being laid off. And they cite many reasons for that. And really the admission by Pete Parsons was that they got too aggressive about their expansion, overextended, and now they're going to have to draw back. And that happens to businesses all the time. A lot of businesses that get excited about their success tend to get too aggressive, and they pay the price. And that may be what Bungie did here, but the problem with Bungie's situation is there are strings attached to that decision. And one of them was that they merged with Sony. And Sony owns a big portion of the company now and has a lot of say in over how that company runs. And this is the part of it I kind of want to touch on, because it relates to whether or not there will be resources in the PvP sandbox in matchmaking and all that to do anything about it. And one of the big things that people were concerned about with this merger when it was announced a couple of years ago was, would Sony eventually absorb Bungie? And there's reason to believe that that is possible. And I want to direct your attention to a particular line. And it's right here. First, we are deepening our integration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, working to integrate 155 of our roles, roughly 12%, into SIE over the next few quarters. Now that seems like a fairly innocuous statement, and the way it was couched, it was clever. Pete Parsons was basically softening the blow of losing 220 people. He said, hey, I know we're losing 220 people, but they're getting jobs with SIE if they want them. Okay, and I assume there'd be some sort of interview process for this. They make offers, counter offers, whatever. But my first question is, what talent are we talking about here? What were they working on? What is it that Bungie loses by losing those people? Okay, and I don't know. The way PvP has been treated in the past, it's hard to believe that there are a lot of PvP dedicated people left. Okay, but it's hard for me to imagine losing developers and not losing support for PvP. It's just hard for me to imagine that. I guess that's just the upshot of it. So that doesn't bode well. Also, is this just the first step? Is this just a death by 1,000 cuts sort of a deal where they just little by little absorb the company? Only time will tell on that. But this doesn't bode well in one way of looking at it. Now, the other way of looking at it is, Pete Parsons is basically saying we're going to focus only on Destiny 2 and Marathon now. And you think, well, okay, that's fine. I play Destiny 2. More focus on Destiny 2 must be a good thing. The problem with that is we're at the end of a 10-year development cycle, and I don't see where they go unless they decide to make a Destiny 3, or they say we're going to open this up and we're going to have new adventures, beyond this, because the acts that they have going on right now and the episodes, I think we can all see how that content's working out. I mean, it's just not much, just like we all guessed it would be, or at least I guessed it would be. I mean, it's just not much. And sure, there are a couple of tidbits here and there, but is this going to hold on to the player base for very long? No, it's not. So if something doesn't change there, Destiny 2 eventually dies off. I mean, it just does. And, let's be honest. Every game dies, ultimately. Now, somebody's going to yell World of Warcraft or something like that. And there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, games run their cycle, and then that's that. Especially, and what's especially bad is this is a game that needs a high player population to be viable, particularly with regards to PvP. And so if they can't do something to keep the player base relatively high, Sony Entertainment has no reason to keep it alive. They absorb the rest of the developers, and that's that. So that being said, we're 6.5 minutes into the video. I want to kind of move over to the PvP, and this is going to be an abrupt change, but it's something that came out of the discussion today, and I would hope that there would be time for something like this or ideas like this to be implemented before it's too late. And one of the discussions today, I mentioned one of the ways to possibly lobby balance would be to just have a bifurcated cut. 1 to 5, you're in one group, 6 to 10, you're in another. And I know this is a very simplistic approach, but sometimes the most direct approach is the best approach. The problem with the snake draft system we have right now is if the lobby balancing goes, so all the top players are on one side and all the lower players are on the other side, you could have 1 to 3s facing 7 to 10s. Okay, that's just not going to work out. That's just not going to be a good experience for at least 6 of the people in the lobby. 6 of the people in the lobby are going to have a very, very bad time. So if half of your people are just detesting their play, you're doing something wrong. So my thought was that if you had a bifurcated system, you really never have that wide of a skill gap inside of a match. I don't believe I'm a top tier, top bracket player. I don't believe I am. But that may be just my view of things. Maybe statistically I am. Let's say for the sake of argument I am. I'm a 1.3 KD right now, lifetime on this account. 1.3. That's not very good. By PvP standards, it's okay. It's better than average, but it's not good, right? So let's say that I wind up in the 5 to 10. All right, so here's what's better about that system. Even if I'm the bottom of that lobby and I'm going to be facing the best of the best players, okay, my team is not going to be comprised of the weakest players. So I'm not going to be a weak player tossed onto a weak team. I mean, I'm going to be a weak player tossed onto an okay team facing maybe a really good team. And we're still going to lose, but we're not going to get clubbed like baby harp seals. And at least some of the players on my team are going to be able to make a fight of it, even if and that's going to give me some opportunities, even as the lowest player in that lobby, to have some success, because I'm not going to be attacked, like I'm actually in a game of Rumble where everything I see is killing me, right? So my argument is very direct and simple, and that is that it's better to have a narrower band of skill in each group than it is to have a wide skill band and have lobby balancing being what it is, and really punishing those players on the low side. Now, of course, what you're going to say is that's not really possible given the player population the way it is right now, and I agree with that to some extent. Yes, it is probably a tough time to make a change like that, but if not now, when? If not now, if something doesn't change, there isn't going to be any population to deal with anyway. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, it's pretty clear that with the numbers declining the way they are, what people have decided. So I'm kind of in that like all or nothing mode. To be honest, I don't know what else Bungie can do. But then again, maybe I'm not a developer for a reason, right? And I guess that I just view this at another way too, and this is something else I should add. There has to be a space where casual players who simply want to be casual can be casual. And they don't, I mean, because you have, and I was a PvE centric player for the most of my time in Destiny, and my view was I'm only going to do PvP when I have to. If there's a quest, if there's an exotic quest, if there's some kind of a thing I have to do to go in there to accomplish, I will do that. I will play long enough to do that, and then I'm getting out of there. There still has to be a place for that, okay? And a place where people can reasonably be successful. And you know what? You might actually begin to draw some people over if they go in there and they can accomplish stuff and it's not super painful to do it. They might say, I might play that once in a while. And you might actually hook some players. Punishing them for stepping foot in there and making, completing a quest something agonizing. I'm sorry. Agony is not part of fun for a lot of people. Some people enjoy that, but some don't. Now, for those players in the upper bracket, and if I'm tossed in there, I could be lumped into this. These are people who are motivated to improve anyway. And so they're going to have a bit more of an appetite for the frustration they're going to face being on the lower end of that bracket. And they will work to improve if there's a chance for improvement. And that's where I'm at. I don't mind being tossed into an upper bracket. I really don't, if there's a chance to improve by being there. And saying there's always a chance to improve. No, there isn't. If I'm a 3 tossed into, a 10 lobby, no, there's no chance for improvement. There's not. You've got to see that. So if I'm a 5, or if I'm a 3 tossed into a lobby that caps at 5 to 10, or 6 to 10, then even then I've got a better chance. Because my teammates are going to be better teammates. I mean, it's just how it has to work. So I'm not saying that necessarily is the end-all be-all solution. I'm just saying, I guess I'm opening this up to, we have to look at this differently. Because the status quo isn't working. This cycling between connection-based matchmaking and skill-based matchmaking, or some versions of that, it's not going to work. It's proven not to work. Ultimately, you lose people either way. And what Bungie has done is just kind of pinballed back and forth, making one group happy long enough to retain them, and then when the other side complains long enough, they move it back over that way to make them happy long enough to retain them. And they're constantly flip-flopping. And I just don't think we have to have a situation where one group suffers all the time. I just don't. So anyway, I'm just positing that and opening that up to discussion, and I'm interested to see what variations we might have. If you've got some wild idea about what matchmaking could be or how it could work, I'm sure you could do something more intricate than I've presented here. Toss it into the discussion. Let's talk about it. So with that said, this is Iron Bill thanking you for watching and signing out.